In this video, we're going to talk about what happens after the Second Crusade. So after the Second Crusade, we find that Nur-ad-Din continues to advance and grow in power. And Nur-ad-Din had very closely associated his rule with the idea of jihad. And so he's successful in defeating and killing Raymond of Antioch. And when Raymond is killed, Nur-ad-Din has his arms and legs and his head cut off, and he sends the body parts to the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad. And he does so as a sign of his devotion. He does so as proof that he is a devout warrior for Islam. During this period, he founds schools and monasteries. Sorry, not monasteries. Got monasteries on the brain here. Schools and mosques across the region, and he persecutes the Shiite Muslim populations in Syria. So all of this is unifying northern Syria under Sunni Muslim Turkish rule. Meanwhile, in the Crusader kingdom, Baldwin III, the son of Fulk, the son of Melisende, is now in his teens. He forces Melisende to give up power, and he enjoys one of the first successes, the first military successes that the Crusaders have enjoyed for some time. He succeeds in capturing the coastal city of Ascalon. And this was important. Ascalon was the last coastal city not in Crusader hands. It had been used as a launching pad for the Fatimids to stage raids into Crusader territory. Now it could be used as a beachhead for further invasions and further campaigns against the Fatimids. However, this success comes at a high price, and that high price is that while Baldwin is besieging Ascalon and carrying out this long siege, Nur-ad-Din succeeds in capturing Damascus. And that means that while the Crusaders have eliminated this stronghold that was holding out against them to the south and to the west, in the east, they're completely surrounded by Nur-ad-Din. But all along that eastern frontier and that northern frontier, Nur-ad-Din has succeeded in unifying the region against them. Meanwhile, in Antioch, we have Raymond's widow, Constance. Constance was the daughter of Bohemond II. He was the son of Tancred, who was the brother of the original Bohemond. And as a child, she had been married to Raymond of Antioch, who was 20 years older than her. And basically, she was married to Raymond in order to convince Raymond to bring his wealth and his military expertise to help the Crusader kingdom. And as you can see, that didn't work out too well. And Constance now says, I'm the heir to the city of Antioch. I married someone who was old enough to be my father once. Now I'm going to marry for love. And she chooses to marry this guy, Reynaud de Chatillon. And Reynaud is a total live wire. This is, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with the equivalent in modern pop culture. Kanye West is the name that's coming to mind. Yeah, I can't think of a better example, but it's the equivalent of marrying a pop star. You're a politician and you choose to marry a pop star. And Reynaud is basically only in this for Reynaud. He attacks Byzantines, he attacks Muslims. He has little regard for any of the complex diplomatic framework that the Crusaders are going to have to follow if they're going to survive, if the Latin kingdom is going to survive. So that's what's going on in Antioch. In 1163, Baldwin died. This was unfortunate because he'd shown himself to be quite a capable ruler, and he's succeeded by his younger brother, Amalric. Now, before becoming king, Amalric, his area of the kingdom that he had supervised, the defense of this area of the kingdom, was the southeast, was Jaffa and Ascalon. And he looks to this direction again when he becomes king. And he proposes a theory that other crusade strategists had proposed before him, that the key to the survival of the Crusader kingdom, now Nur-ad-Din had become so strong, lay in Egypt. Fatimids had been in decline for some time. Their kingdom was in disarray, was in a state of civil war. If the Crusaders could conquer Egypt, they could use the wealth and the stability of Egypt as a stronghold to ensure the survival of Crusader territories in the Holy Land. And so he gets involved in this Fatimid civil war that's being fought between Shirkuh, who is a Kurdish general who had been sent to fight against the Fatimids by Nur ad-Din, and Shawar, who was a rebel against the Fatimids. And Shaku and Shawar are in an alliance together initially. The alliance is successful, and then they start fighting with one another. And Shawar, the Fatimid general who had rebelled against the previous Fatimid caliphate, turns to Amalric for assistance. And so Amalric enters Egypt, and at first he's very successful. He defeats Shaku, and the Crusaders are even able to capture the city of Alexandria. This is really significant because Alexandria, along with Antioch, Constantinople, Rome, and Jerusalem, is considered one of the five holiest Christian cities. And so, for this brief moment in 1167, all of those cities are back in Christian control. All these ancient cities that are associated with the Apostle Peter. That's part of what makes them holy. But what happens? The Crusaders attempt to make Egypt a protectorate, and this brings Nur ad-Din into the conflict. So Nur ad-Din is going to bring his army into Egypt, and he's going to defeat the Crusaders. He's going to defeat the Crusaders, and this means that the landscape around the Crusaders is going to be further unified against them. So as we come to the end of this material, Islam is increasingly unified. That's a problem, or at least the Islamic territories around the Crusaders are increasingly unified under Zengi, under Nur ad-Din. That's a huge problem. The relationship with Byzantium, which was bad before the Second Crusade, is really terrible. That's a problem. The Second Crusade's military strategy was a terrible failure and led to the fall of Damascus and the breakup of that alliance. That's another problem. So the Crusading kingdom is facing a ton of problems, a ton of challenges, is weaker than it's ever been before. But at the same time, the idea of crusading, the popularity of crusading, this exercise of Christian piety, medieval Christian piety, had never been more popular. And so this, again, is a sign of the genuine piety that is inspiring the Crusaders. If you're crusading in the hopes of military victory, everything is looking pretty bad. But if you're crusading because you think this is the best way to gain heaven, this is the best way to be a faithful Christian, sign right up. And that's what's going on. So this is where we'll leave things in 1167, and we'll talk about the Third Crusade next time.